Hello friends, Robin here from Cheese from Scratch, and today you are in my dingy pantry here, and we're going to be cleaning my cheese cave. So lately in my cheese fridge, I have had a contamination of blue mold. So I've been struggling for probably about the last month with any of my naturally aged cheeses. I'm really struggling because I have really aggressive blue mold that starts to grow on the cheeses before, for example, if I'm making bries, a penicillin cadidium is the mold that I like. Well, this blue mold is kind of taking over and growing too fast and just getting ahead of me. So I'd like to clean out my fridge today. It needs a clean anyways. I do try to clean it a couple times a year, and just make sure that I'm getting any of the mold spores that are circling around in there. A little bit of blue mold when you're naturally aging cheeses is normal, but when you're having a really aggressive contamination like this, I think I just need to give everything a good scrub. It's not going to hurt really. So to start us off, I'll actually show you how my cheese aging fridge is set up. So this is just a regular refrigerator. We got it off of Buy and Sell. We actually got both of these fridges. So this one right here is my milk fridge, and this one right here is my cheese fridge. So we bought them off Buy and Sell. I think they were like $250 for the pair or something like that. Super easy. And then I ended up fitting it with this Inkbird it's called. So it's a thermostat controller. It plugs into the wall, and then the fridge plugs into it, and then it's you set the temperature to what you would like it to be. So I'd like it to be so 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit is the best for a cheese aging area. So I first started with doing 55, but I found that whenever the fridge was open or anything, it was just getting too warm, so I ended up switching down to 50, and it still fluctuates between, I would say, 50 and 55 when I have it set at 50. So super cheap. I think I don't know what they are on Amazon, but they're very affordable. They have a little probe that goes into the fridge like this, and so it just measures the temperature in there. If the fridge gets too warm, it turns the fridge on. If the fridge gets too cold, it turns the fridge off. So that's how it works. So when you're using this, you can't use the freezer. I have like ice packs and stuff in the freezer. That's how I use it, because sometimes it's on and sometimes it's off. So you don't want to put any food up there that you actually plan on consuming. So other than that, this works really good to keep a consistent temperature in my aging area. And I'll just show you, I've got all my cheeses in here. Yeah, so I really like this setup. Before I had this setup, I just had a regular refrigerator, and I would just turn it to the warmest setting, but that's still a little bit too cold for aging cheese. So this just gives you a more ideal temperature for aging with that Inkbird. Alright, so to start off cleaning this cheese aging area, I am going to first just take all the cheeses out. This is a good time for me to assess all of them and see what's going on. So this is a Gouda that I made. I try to flip them every once in a while. Really, you should be flipping these cheeses once a week. I never get around to flipping them that often, so once a month or whatever, but during this time it will be a good time for me to flip them. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull them out. I can also categorize them. I've got Goudas here. I actually, before we jumped on, I ended up cleaning out all my ripening containers. So I'll show you what a ripening container is, but I have already cleaned them out and washed them and sealed any cheeses that I needed to from those ripening containers. And then I was like, hey, I should be recording this. Got my feta. Let's see what this looks like inside. Just a little cream layer on the top. I recently was reading something from the Milk Trucker about how he worked at a place where they stirred the feta brines, and that made the aging of the feta way better. And so I was thinking that I'm going to start stirring my feta brines and just see what happens. So always when you clean out your milk fridge, you end up finding weird things, like, or your cheese fridge. Hopefully you're not cleaning out your milk fridge and finding that. So that's definitely going to the chickens. Just like some old bries that I made that have just hardened. For example, this one just didn't get eaten in time and it just shriveled up into a little block of tiny parmesan. So that's gonna go. So just clean out everything. These ones, actually, I'll show you what I mean by the blue mold taking over. So these, I wrapped them just to see what was going to happen, because sometimes you like to just see what's going to happen. And I will say my brie recipe is very tried and true, but I've been working on developing using just natural cultures with it. Look at that. Oh. So that's my contamination I've got going on right now. Actually, the blue mold has died off, and it's... I'm going to cut that open and see what it looks like inside. But when I wrapped this, it was really heavy, covered in blue mold. And it had a little bit of the penicillin cadidium, which is that white stuff there. And that's what I was trying to get. But then it was really a heavy contamination of the blue mold. Now, I'm going to go on a little tangent here, but I've been working on, developing my brie recipe to not have any added cultures, so other than clabber. So currently I use clabber, and then I add in a penicillin cadidium to kind of jumpstart that mold growing on the cheeses. But lately I've been working on just having just adding the clabber in, and then using kind of my cheese making technique and the way that I age these cheese. I have to wash them for every day for a week after I make them, to try and get that penicillin to just come by itself, that penicillin cadidium. So these are interesting. But the problem with that is that the penicillin cadidium is so good at preventing other molds from growing on the cheeses, and so because it's stunted, because you're trying to develop it to come, like, kind of, it's not really in the cheese, you're just trying to get it to start to grow. I'm having a lot of contaminations with it, and that could also be part of my problems with my blues. But then I had some that I did with penicillin cadidium, and I still had a really big contamination with blue. So I think I just need to clean everything. Colby, Zach's favorite. Always have a lot of Colby in the fridge. Here's a cheddar. Oh, I gotta show you the funniest cheese. I don't know, this is really bad. Okay, this was a cloth-bound cheddar that I was making. See the pink on there? That's Sharpie. So when I cut out the bandaging to put on this cheddar, I used a red Sharpie to, like, kind of make the circles. And then I cut it out of the cloth, and then I put it on the cheese. Well, it leached onto the cheese, and so now there's this pink stuff on there. It looks like a Barbie cheese. It had only been cloth bound for a couple months, and then I needed to open it up for my book photo shoot. So then I ended up just vacuum sealing it after that, but I don't know. We're definitely going to have to cut that off. That's not good for you. So definitely recommend, if you're cloth binding something, don't have any marker left on the cloth when you wrap it. Colby's, this is from my big cheese press, so I have to cut them in half. I don't like cutting in half for aging, but sometimes you gotta. So there's the other half, but it's like huge. We put this together. One giant cheese. My vacuum seal bags aren't big enough. So same with this clabber Gouda. So this is an espresso Gouda. I'm excited for this. Once it's done aging, I'm going to smoke it, and we're going to see how it is. I'm really excited for this cheese. Christmas time, this will be ready. So you could make this cheese if you wanted, using the Gouda recipe in my Christmas cheese board ebook. And then before you throw it in the vacuum pack, rub it with coffee grounds. And it's an experimental cheese right now, but I'm hoping it turns out so good. More of those little contaminated bries. Alright, so now these are the cheeses that get shoved to the back because I don't want to eat them. This one right here has a lot of whey in the bag, you can see. And this is fairly new. It wasn't like this right after I wrapped it. It was nice and dry. and then it developed these. And what this is caused from is something called, or what it usually is caused from, is something called late acid development. So this cheese had not developed enough acid when I vacuum sealed it, or when I salted it actually, I should say. It had not developed enough acid, and so later on in the aging process it started to develop more acid because there was more food left in the cheese. The lactic bacteria hadn't fed on all of the lactose anyways, so it started to develop more acid, and then every time a cheese develops acid, that pushes whey out of the curds. So that's how I ended up with all of this whey in there. This cheese probably won't taste good. It probably will taste really, really bitter, and I've just been avoiding dealing with it. The other half of the Barbie cheese. Again, it wouldn't fit in the... this one does have some late acid development too. See all of this white, like crystally stuff on there? That's calcium, oh shoot, what is this called? It's like a crystal. I'll think of the word and then I'll tell you. But it's safe to eat. It's not a mold. It's a crystal coming out of the cheese. But because of all of this whey here, probably going to be a bitter cheese. This might be the other half of that cheese right there. You can see that the ink bird just turned red on because I had the door open too long. I've got some notes on some of these cheeses. So I resealed this one in March because of the water in the bag. It was bitter, probably the same thing, late acid development. And I think that these cheeses, I didn't have these ones labeled, but I think these were cheddars. And I was experimenting with not doing my ripening time after I did my cheddar recipe. So if you want to do my cheddar recipe, I actually have a tutorial on YouTube on how to do the cheddar recipe. But I was experimenting leaving out the 1 hour time frame after you add your culture and before you add your rennet in. And I think that caused me to be off with my acidity of my cheeses, and I did have quite a few cheddars that had that whey seeping out into the bag. So that was a mistake that I made, and so I've since gone back to adding that ripening time into there. This might have been the same batch too. Cheddar again. This butter, I don't know why I have it in here, but I made this July 2023, and it's been in here since then, and I vacuum sealed it. I feel like I had a plan of an experiment I wanted to do or something, but I don't remember. I don't know what I did. That's weird. Just a couple more cheeses. Correct. And then in the door, I have all of the cheeses that I've cut up and are ready to eat. So I've got, these ones are all a tomb that I cut up. They kind of taste like a Swiss actually. They're really good. These ones right here, this is a Parm that I naturally aged. It's super yummy and super old too. So that's kind of a fun thing about some of the cheeses that I can get nice and old, and I naturally aged it for a long time too. So it's like really crystally and lovely. This one, naturally aged too, I cut the mold off the outside of it, the whole block. It's also very good. You can see a little bit of the mold was left on there, but that didn't grow. Mostly when you have your cheeses vacuum sealed, they're not going to grow mold underneath them. That is just left from when I cut it. Occasionally you'll get a little mold growth under the vacuum seal bag, and whatever I have going on with these cheddars, these ones that I'm probably just going to end up throwing to the chickens, they've got some sort of, it's not the calcium crystals coming out, it's like some sort of white mold on there as well, but their seals all burst. So I'm just going to toss these to the chickens, I think. This is a Havarti that was good when I wrapped it, but I wrapped it a long time ago, so I don't know. Sometimes you get too much cheese in here. Same thing, that was the one that I cut the mold off the outside. This is a tiny one I cut the mold off the outside. I have a lot of naturally aged cheeses in here because for the eating ones, same thing, I left the mold on these ones though. On the outside, the rind, sorry. And these are ready to consume now. So I have a lot of naturally aged cheeses in here because of just the season I am in lactation. Where right now I'm making a lot of our cheeses like this that will be more like eating cheeses, and then I have a lot of fancy cheeses right now. I don't know what this one is. But usually I have a lot of cheeses that are just like this that we're going to pull out and just use for like grilled cheese sandwiches or cheese and crackers, that kind of stuff. But this has turned into a cheesecake video. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I've taken out all the cheeses. I'm just going to wipe everything down. So I've got vinegar and soap and water mixed here, and I'm just going to spray everything. And you want to have some sort of some sort of sanitizer in there, whether it's vinegar or if you want to use bleach, some sort of sanitizer that's going to sanitize everything a bit. Looking a little sparse, but right now it's cheese making season on my homestead, so before long I'm going to have this entire fridge filled right up, and that's going to last us the year. And when we're back to this time next year, it's probably going to look more like how it looks now, where we have a lot of eating cheese that is older, not so much eating cheese that is younger, like this. This space right here will be reserved for my ripening containers, and I'll just quickly show you, I'll do it in another video, but I'll quickly show you right now how I do set up a ripening container in case you're wondering. Alright, so as you can see, I've got all my ripening containers right now washed and cleaned. I vacuum sealed any cheeses that were in them and just kind of gave my fridge a fresh start, basically, so hopefully I can beat that mold. But basically how I set up a ripening container is these ripening containers are just plastic containers from the dollar store. They're still wet right now, so obviously you want them to be dry. Plastic containers from the dollar store. This one costs $2.50, and some sort of rack in the bottom of those containers. So you can buy cheese drying mats on any cheese supply store. So I have a tiny one right there. Or another one that works really good, especially for my big container here, is these draining racks for like on beside your sink, I think that they're for or something. But even if you don't have a container big enough into them, you can cut them in half really easy as well. So those work really good. Yeah, so that is a ripening container. I age any cheeses that are going to be naturally aged, and often cheeses that I need to be drying. And if it's too hot in my house to dry them on a rack on the counter, I'll dry them in the cheese cave in a ripening container. And when you put them in there, you just kind of leave the lid ajar. I have these little hydrometers, I always can't say the name, but these little meters measure humidity in the containers. So right now it is 57% humidity in the house. Before, when I took this out of the container, it was a lot higher because it had had the lid kind of on. I had some cheese in there. Usually cheeses are aged at about an 80% humidity, but depending on your recipe. So however you need to adjust the humidity, you can. So it will tell you, okay, it's 90 degrees, or it's 90% humidity. That tells me, okay, it's too humid in that box. I need to put the lid more ajar. Or it will say it's 65% humidity, and that means that it's not humid enough in the box. So I need to either wet a paper towel and crumple that up and put it in there, or increase the humidity in that little container better. So that's how you set up a ripening container. And yeah, so cheeses that are vacuum sealed or waxed, you don't have to worry about monitoring humidity, but cheeses that are cloth bound or are developing their own natural rind, they're going to need to have their humidity controlled. And they also need to have their temperature controlled. So all cheeses need to have temperature control between that 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, unless your recipe says different, but between that 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit for most cheeses for temperature, and then only cheeses that are natural rinding or cloth binding need to have the humidity controlled in these little ripening boxes. And so this is what I mean when I say I leave space in the cheese fridge so that I can have these boxes. I will stack them, but I'm careful about stacking them just because I don't want the lid to end up going right down on them. So if I do stack, I'm pretty careful to make sure that it's like a jar. Yeah, so that's that. Thank you guys for watching my video. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. I post all things cheese making, dairy cows, and dairy processing on this channel, and I would love to have you follow along with me here. I post a new video every Monday.